Hi everyone, and welcome to That's Mental Home Edition. So today I want to talk about the road to recovery. It's a bit of a big name, but I think it's quite appropriate in terms of my mental health journey. So basically, yeah, I want to talk about how I started getting better, and I use the term a little bit loosely because I do feel that, better is an ongoing thing. But how I started to get better after my first burnout and the struggles that I had for a year and a half with a difficult client. To find out more about that, you can watch my origins video, which I will link maybe here in a card or down below in the description box. So, while I had a new manager at work and the client had also changed on this project that I've been working on for a year and a half, the situation wasn't really improving. And I was presented with an opportunity to take a new project on, and I had to decide whether or not I was going to take it. And in hindsight, actually, I think that I really hung on too long to a bad situation, hoping that it would get better. In my first project with this client that drove me to several burnouts, I think I was just too hopeful, maybe too naive, and I kept hanging in there, and eventually it was just a bad idea. So while this doubt still crept into my mind when this new opportunity was presented to me, I also knew that this was my get out of jail free card, this was my path to freedom, and I had to take it. So I was nervous because I knew nothing about the industry that I was entering, but I still took the opportunity because this was my time. And the great thing about it was that it allowed me to get away from a toxic environment, and it also put physical distance between me and all the people that had been a problem. So the colleague that had bullied me, the crazy client, even actually my colleagues in the office. Not that they were a problem, but let's just say that the environment as a whole, I think, had become really toxic for me. And I was going to a completely different part of Switzerland, so it actually put physical distance as well. And within a week of starting this new project, I had already slept a lot better than I had in the past year and a half. So I mean, it's just crazy to think about it. And I was already starting to feel a bit more like myself and a bit better. And I think that even my colleagues commented on it like a week in that I was already looking better. And this was when I realized actually how important sleep is and how much good sleep contributes to your health and to your state of mind. Because with better sleep, I was already regaining self-confidence and I wasn't letting the anxiety overwhelm me quite so much anymore. This is really interesting. So a couple of things changed during this time that made the recovery possible during this new assignment. Of course, it was a great assignment. I really enjoyed it. I was learning new things. I was in a new place. There was a lot to be excited about. But also there were various factors and conditions that really helped me feel like I was getting back on top of my mental health, but also getting in touch with it, getting to know it a bit better, getting to understand myself. So the first thing was sleep. Like I just said, with more sleep, my brain was a lot clearer. I felt a lot less nervous, and I was more able to fight off, as it were, the irrational thoughts of anxiety. So once again, I cannot talk enough about the importance of sleep, and that's why today I'm a bit of a sleep freak, because I just know also just my capacity to do my job. When I think back about how many times I went to work on 4 hours sleep and kept going, I mean, I have no idea how I did that because I was much less acute and aware and capable. But anyway, so sleep. The second thing was my environment. Like I said, I was no longer in a toxic environment. I had been completely removed from that. And on top of that, everybody around me was super smart. They were super kind, but also because they were so smart, there was no longer a need to fight for attention. So there was no longer this crazy fight going on of people trying to one-up each other through stupid games and just show off about how important they were by being loud and noisy. The people there knew their worth, and so they were very relaxed, and just it created a completely different, more calm and level-headed environment. The third thing is my client. So as you know, in the previous assignment, I had a client that was a little bit crazy, definitely contributing to this negative situation, and as I said, putting me and my colleague against each other, amongst other things. This client here was a super friendly and nice person. I really believe that they wanted me to succeed, that they valued my role, and in that situation I just felt so much more empowered to do my job, and I wasn't scared about someone jumping out at me from behind a corner with a knife. I also felt able to talk to them openly, which is really important, and I remember telling them that my life had changed significantly since I had started this project, and just being really grateful. And that person was just able to listen to me, and it didn't feel like a a client and provider relationship. It felt more like a partnership. Headspace, and I don't mean the app. Like I said, I had better sleep and my environment was better, and therefore my mind and my brain were more free, and I was really able to think about things differently, and maybe in a more calm way. So with this headspace, I was able to start understanding what I had experienced and what I had been through. I realized that I had been anxious, and that anxiety was a disorder, because I was able to Google it and look it up and put a name to the feelings, and realize that, okay, this wasn't normal, but also it was something that was known and understood, and there was an explanation for it. I also realized that I could control my anxiety, so I started to do that as best as I could. Of course, this was just the beginning, but once you understand that anxiety is like a bunch of irrational thoughts and fears, then you can kind of, at least in my experience, I was able to start telling myself, wait a minute, that's completely irrational. And then I also realized that I had been subjected to extreme amounts of stress, and it wasn't my fault, of course, that I had ended up feeling so run down and exhausted. It was just the environment itself that had been crazy. The next point is people. I had some really good people in my corner that definitely helped me to recover. First of all was my manager. So as I mentioned, I think in a blog post, this person was just thrown at me at a very random moment. I actually remember crying because management had told me to just bring up an issue I was having with this manager, and I was so upset because I was thinking, this person is new, they know nothing about the history, nothing about the account, what influence are they going to have, and you're telling me to tell them about my issues. I was just really upset and frustrated. But actually, as it turned out, this person was the first person to ever listen to me and make me feel listened to and heard. And that person was also the first one I was able to open up to about mental health. They really understood what I was talking about. They didn't judge me, and they created psychological safety for me to be able to talk to them about it, which is so important. The second person, other than my client, who, as I mentioned, was a very positive person and a positive influence, the second person was, while I was on this assignment, I met another colleague who had also been assigned to the same project or client, let's say. That person was really kind and open and listened to me talk about my experiences. And it's funny actually, because I think the common thread between all of these people is that they just listened and gave me that space to talk and just not judge what I was saying. So this person was also open and understood about mental health, which again was really helpful, because I didn't need to explain it to them, and I wasn't met with someone who was going, like, are you crazy? What do you mean? Do you need therapy? They would just say, oh yeah, okay, mental health. I get it. I've been through it. I know what you're talking about. And this person also helped me by agreeing that what I had been through was awful and traumatic, and I cannot explain how helpful that is. Because when you're going through this, as you might know, you just sometimes feel like you're crazy, you feel like you're imagining it, you just don't know basically what's going on. And having someone else confirm that what you've been through is traumatic is just so helpful in recovering and kind of accepting that, yeah, what you went through wasn't normal. So that was amazing. And then the last point, which is a really interesting one, I've called it tricking my brain. So basically, once I was feeling more relaxed and rested, like I said, I developed awareness of my anxiety. I knew what it was. It had a label. So I started just tricking my brain, or rather, I practiced controlling my thoughts. So as I mentioned before, I was surrounded by very smart people, so I felt like I really had to up my game. A lot was at stake in this project, or that's how I felt about it anyway. So, for example, before going into meetings or presentations, I would tell myself things like, "You're great, you've got this, you are the expert, you know your shit, you're super smart," and then I would chant, remind myself, "Fake it till you make it." And I would just chant this to myself and psych myself up before going into meetings, and kind of like maybe walk around a little bit in a good pace. Actually, I remember like jumping up and down in the bathroom, like just trying to pump myself and get this energy so that I could just walk in there with confidence. And the crazy thing is, I mean, it actually works. You might have experienced this yourself, or you might not have, but it really, really does work. And in fact, I maybe referred to this in when I talked about my lifetime of mental health, but back then I also tried cognitive behavioral therapy for my depression, which is all about, once again, like learning to control your thoughts, recognizing them, controlling and changing them. So it's definitely a proven scientific method. And because I was learning to control my mind, or learning to do it again, or learning it in a different situation, I also learned to control the irrational thoughts and fears of my anxiety. Now, of course, this was just the beginning, so it's not like overnight suddenly I could switch it off and I wasn't having them anymore. But I started to realize that I could control them, and I think that's a really important thing. Because for me, once you know that you can control those thoughts, they're no longer taking over your emotions and your feelings, and you don't have to get lost in this spiral of fear. So that's it in a nutshell. That was really the beginning of my road to recovery. I think, it was really a defining moment for me to be able to step away from that toxic environment I had been in and into a new one, which was much more positive. To be surrounded by these positive people as well, I think that really had an impact and really helped me to have these different types of people around me. Of course, there were still a lot more steps after that, and I will share some more stories about how I experienced more burnouts after this. So it's not like I was suddenly, burnout or anxiety free. But like I said, this was a real turning point for me, because I felt like at that moment I was building myself up again after having been completely destroyed. After being in pieces on the floor, I was finally picking myself up and putting myself back together. So there you are. I really wanted to share this story with you because I think it's so important to also talk about the positives, not just the negatives. Of course, the reason I share the negative is because I want people to know that they're not alone, and we all go through this, unfortunately. But it's also really important to share that it is possible to make it through. It is possible to recover. It's possible to get better. It is possible, and you can do it too. And if you had told me back then, when I was in my worst moments, that I was going to make it and I would be making videos about mental health, I would never have believed you. So it's possible. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find more links and videos in the description box below. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Not sure where you can do that, but we'll figure it out. And please share this video if you liked it. Bye.